Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the cottage. It's cold tonight, so you're going to have to deal with me in the big coat. But we have Rebecca Barrett with us, who has like 50,000 followers on YouTube and not a whole lot else going on that I can find. But she's going to tell us how she went from a raging feminist to the most feminine of housewives. She got married like a year ago and it changed her life. Honestly, this video is like 50% gold and 50% shite. But first, like this video if you enjoy my content and subscribe to the channel to let the algorithm know that. Now, let's go see what Rebecca has going on.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Rebecca, and today I'm going to be filming a highly requested video. You guys ask me this all of the time, so I decided to do an actual sit-down video about this so I can live on my channel. But I've done a few lives and a few interviews about this, so I will link those above and below for you guys to check out. But today I am going to tell you guys how I transitioned from being a radical, raging feminist to becoming a traditional feminine woman and wife. So if you are excited for this video, please give it a big thumbs up, subscribe down below,
subscribe to her,
and let's get into it.
Subscribe to me.
Up, I grew up in a very traditional household.
Like 50,000 subscribers.
I grew up with a mom and a dad. My mom was a homemaker in the most traditional sense. She made breakfast, lunch, dinner. She cooked, cleaned, took care of the house, took care of the kids.
Busy lady.
And my dad was the breadwinner. He had his own company. He worked every day to provide and protect for the family. And even growing up, I learned from a very young age how to cook, how to clean, how to take care of my siblings. I was a very responsible child.
You sound like an oldest child. I relate to that.
When I was growing up, but also growing up, I learned very young about infidelity, and that's kind of what shaped me and molded me into becoming more of a feminist, and I'll talk about that moving forward. And so when I went to high school and going into college, I wanted to be an independent woman. I didn't want to rely on a man's income. I wanted to make my own income. I chose to go down an engineering route. I'm a mechanical engineer, I'm a robotics major. I'm very handy, and
that's not always the way that story goes, is it?
Very hands-on. So engineering was a route that I wanted to go down.
She's very smart.
And that led me to becoming a oil and gas engineer. I was in that field for 3 years before starting my first company and moving to New York. But during that time frame, I was very much in my masculine energy. I was very much in my masculine form. I had to be one of the boys. So that is kind of how I creeped into being a more feminist woman.
Like, feminism is not a reaction to men, though. Feminism is about women, right? So, I'm not sure what you think feminism is, darling. But I understand having to exist in a boys' club. I was in audio engineering for a while, which is nothing like real engineering. It's, microphones and mixing boards and stuff. But it's also a boys' club. Yeah, so you cannot stick out as a woman in that. No, it's not a good idea. It doesn't work. So, I understand having to be very conscious of that aspect of it. It's difficult.
Now, fast forward, I moved to New York to start my first company, and New York was the place where feminism just took its grips into me and just latched onto me.
Evil
and
New
I
York
adopted
City.
a lot of the ideology from New York and my time in New York. I adopted this hustle culture. I was very much an entrepreneur. I was a CEO.
So we're talking
I had my first company and then a second company, and I was raising money. I was in.
So we're talking like Sheryl Sandberg lean-in style feminism, I guess. I hear that's exhausting.
Multiple publications. I had made a name for myself in the entrepreneurial space in New York. The more masculine I became, or the more I was in my masculine frame, the less happy I was, the more resentful I was, and the more combative and competitive that I was. Because being a female entrepreneur, being a female CEO, we had to fight for our seat at the table, right? We were constantly being told we needed to do all of these things to get funding. We needed to sit at the table. We needed to be super competitive. And that is the hustle culture, right? That is the dream that so many women seek to lead their lives like.
I must have missed the memo on that, or I'm too old or something. I don't know. I've always been a weirdo, so the idea that I don't know what the mainstream is up to is not new. However, that's insane. Like, not everyone is cut out for that. Not everyone is competitive like that. And I know from firsthand experience that being like an intuitive thinker and existing in a highly competitive space is, it really doesn't work very well. You exhaust yourself very quickly.
Right? And I lived that life. I was that pinnacle woman that people look up to. I had mentees and I had a bunch of women that followed my ways. We were all very successful on paper, but it was very exhausting. It was constantly battling my feminine energy with my masculine energy. And I'm a highly sensitive person. I'm an empath. So meaning I am very emotional, and I also take other people's emotions and absorb it like a sponge. So I'm very in tune with these things. And also I can read a room and pick out bad energy and good energy. I did a whole video on this.
That's amazing. You can pick out different people's energies from across the room. Like, I don't know. I will like have bad moods for no reason when people who I live with, I'm close to, are upset about something. And I'll find that out later. But like, I feel, I don't know about reading strangers from across the room. That's a lot. So, a highly sensitive person. Let's see what that is.
I will link that above and below too. But being an empath, being a female CEO, and living in my masculine frame, I was miserable. Okay, I was constantly questioning myself. Why am I so emotional? Like, why can't I just be one of these other women who understand and get it, who can fight and who can pitch the same way that men
why
do?
Can't I be a different kind of person?
Battling myself.
Who hasn't asked themselves that?
Questioning myself why I couldn't be more aggressive or why I couldn't be more competitive. Really? Being in my masculine frame, being the boss babe, being all of these things,
playing against
was so exhausting. And I was exhausting. At my, I was at my breaking point. Okay, I was at my breaking point where I was like, I feel like I've accomplished so much, and
because I had
lived a lot of this career life very, very single because I resented men. I didn't like being around men, and the only men that I had really were my buddies. There was no one that I was essentially attracted to. So I started reading books, right? I started to work on myself. I discovered that I was a highly sensitive person. I got some therapy around that. I discovered that, I am more sensitive to things and I care about people. And that's just how I am. And I learned to embrace who I was.
Right. Because, not only do women exist physically, we exist mentally also. I wrote an article about it. I will link it below. The female mind also exists. And, there's different shades of it, obviously. But you have a sex and then you have a personality. Okay?
Right, who I was created to be. And that also meant that I stopped partying and I stopped going to these events and I stopped being that socialite and going to these events and stopped hanging out with certain people that would bring me down because I didn't want myself energetically to be
so like
diminished.
Seeking better influences and trying to drop negative influences.
Jordan Peterson, 12 Rules for Life, and I learned how to take personal accountability for my actions. I knew that I wasn't the victim. I was taught that I had to be the victim, but I resonated with that book so much because I was like, wow, it's definitely in my control and I'm blaming and shifting the blame onto other people.
I haven't read that book and I would not call myself a fan of Jordan Peterson. But if that's the message that she took from that, sometimes we see the message that we need to see, right? Whatever it takes to break out of that victim narrative that is so common. I think these days it's almost as if in order to get yourself taken seriously in a lot of ways, you have to find your victim narrative, right?
When it's something that I had to do, that I had to put in the work. And all of that was happening at the same time that I met my now husband. And for those of you who maybe do or don't know, my husband and I met. I was at a work meeting and he happened to be in the same building and we met and it was like a whole thing. I will link that video above and below for you guys to also check out. From there, it was just, we were inseparable. We were inseparable. And the more I started working on myself, the more I realized I was creating a lot of the issues within our relationship.
Okay, no joke, I relate to all of this too. I've been married for a little longer than they have. They've been married for a little over a year. It looks like they got married last October. In the middle of a pandemic. Whatever. We got married in 2015. Summer of 2015. It was a really big year. It was a crazy year, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, on a personal level too. Totally. But anyway, so that like makes it 6.5 years, I guess. Right? Gonna be 7 next summer. So that's not an eternity. But it's definitely more than a year. And there are some things that come out after a while that you had no idea were going to be there. Good luck, hun. Really. But it's an adventure.
I would get upset with him on things that he didn't even know he was doing and all of this other stuff. And fast forward, we got engaged. And during our engagement process, we were encouraged to.
It's got to be a good whirlwind, though, right?
Now, I didn't want to do premarital
worth
counseling, okay? Premarital counseling to me was like, why would we do this? We can just get married. Well, let me tell you, premarital counseling was probably the thing that saved our relationship. And
okay, so she was encouraged to get premarital counseling. And I saw in another video of hers that she's always been Christian. So I'm guessing maybe somebody at church suggested that they go to Christian premarital counseling because listen to what they taught them.
Taught us the roles of a wife and a husband. Through that work with our counselor, with doing one-on-ones, I realized that I was still very much in my feminist mindset, right? I had worked on myself. I thought I was doing all this stuff. And I realized that I needed to take on the role. If I wanted to be a wife, I needed to take on the role of a wife. And what does that mean, right?
That's a good question.
Is submissive to her husband. My husband leads in my relationship. Does that mean that I am a doormat? Does that mean that I'm a slave to him? Does that mean that I do everything that he says? Absolutely not. And that is what is probably the biggest detriment to women, because that is what they believe. They think that being submissive means that a man can just walk all over you.
Okay, that's what a lot of men believe too, though, right? And unfortunately, a lot of times, if it comes down to it, who's going to win that fight?
And if that's the case, no, I'm sorry. I'm here to tell you guys that being submissive, all that means is having trust in your husband's decision-making skills.
Okay. I have trust in my husband's decision-making skills, the ones that I've observed that he is on top of. Okay. He's very good about paying bills, which I am more absent-minded and maybe would not, especially be so great at that. So, he makes the money and he literally wakes up the day he gets paid and pays the bills. It's great. I count on him to do that, and I know he will. On the other hand, there are certain other things that he's less good at. You do need to find someone who their abilities kind of dovetail with yours, right? Where you complement each other as people.
Having that ability to lean on your husband and letting him take the lead in the household. I'm his co-pilot.
The lead in the household.
But we both have to share our opinions.
Yeah, no kidding. The lead in the household. Does that mean that he's doing all the household work?
Both have to share in the conversation, and then at the end of the day,
yes, that's called a relationship.
The final decision. And it's also understanding
what
we play in our relationship, right? My husband is the main breadwinner in our relationship.
Okay.
I make money here on YouTube. It's amazing, but it's definitely more of a supplemental income than it is a true income. Communicating what your roles are before you get married.
Okay, wait, this is important, but I just want to say, what the fuck does how much money you make have to do with who is in charge at home? That's that prosperity doctrine shit, okay? Because he makes more money, he's more blessed by God. What the fuck is that? No. See, the man goes out and works because he is the one who's made in the image of God. Gee, I'm not Christian. I never will be. I never was. But I don't know. I've taken the time to get to know a little bit about what the people I've lived among my entire life believe. And that's not supposed to be it.
Well, set the expectations for communicating what your roles are before you get married will set the expectations for your marriage. Now, if your husband loves to cook, right? Then he can cook the dinners. There's nothing wrong with that. But we have to communicate with one another what these roles are before we sign the dotted line.
Ding, ding, ding. That is 100% true. We did that. We were in our 30s, or mid 30s, when we got married, though. So, we had both been around the block a couple of times. And we're well aware of a lot of the kinds of things that can go wrong. See, so we went over a lot of this stuff and, unpacked a bit of our baggage, a lot of it, right at the beginning. You have to discuss what your expectations are. That is good advice.
And so that is what submission, and that's what being a wife to me actually means. It's also taking care of myself. I make sure that I look good for my husband, not because, I need to look a certain way for him, but I want him to want me. I want my husband to desire me. I don't want him to look outside of the house. I don't want him to look to other women. It is so refreshing.
Okay, wait a minute. So, if he looks outside of the house, that is on him, though. I don't want my husband to look outside of the house either, but, that is... I expect him to be an adult, okay? And, respect his obligations. It's not on me to ensure that he follows through on his obligations. That's on him because he is an adult. How patronizing. And gross. Is this what you mean by takes the lead in your relationship? He tells you how to look? Is that why it looks like you borrowed your great aunt's blouse for this video? Really, I have trouble telling exactly how old she is. I hate to comment on her appearance, but I really was confused because she has all this amazing experience with business and everything and engineering. But she doesn't have a Facebook. Who over 30 doesn't have a Facebook? Anyway.
When you have a masculine man that can take on his masculine form, and I can then move into my feminine form, and we can complement each other. We don't compete with each other. We don't. Because once we started competing with each other, we had a lot more issues. Why would I compete with my husband? We're on the same
It's not
team,
supposed to be a power play.
We're on the exact same team. We are working towards the same goals.
Right.
That is the beauty of marriage. That is the beauty of relationship. And that's what I want to encourage more women and more men to have. I want to encourage you. You don't have to take the world on your shoulders. You don't have to take on everything and be this powerhouse. It's exhausting.
Yes. Having a partner, a good one, is supposed to make life easier. That's true. And in a lot of ways it does. And, in a lot of other ways it complicates life because it's an entire other person who you're sharing your life with, not just your bed, not just your, how was your day? Your life, everything. Eventually. It's cold. Winter socks. Anyway, what's she saying?
World on your shoulders. You don't have to take on everything and be this powerhouse. It's exhausting. Finding a man that can allow you to rest and allow you to take off some of that load.
Okay, but that's partnership, sometimes you lean on them and sometimes they lean on you. I don't understand why. I mean, is this how you were created to be, right? I suppose this is something to do with Jesus. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. Why does this stuff have to be gendered like this?
Is so amazing that I want other women to understand and realize that. And
yeah, she really does. Which, brings me to an important point that I was thinking about. Conservatives like this want to win young women over, and I think they're succeeding with, honesty. Okay, because they're being honest and they're talking about things like marriage and having children that a lot of women are pretty interested in. Who knew? And mainstream any kind of feminism's failure to address these things leaves the door wide open for young women to be led down this primrose feminine, path to conservatism, which is anti-woman, right? Every single one of these women goes to her own subjugation. Every single one of these women is giving up some amount of her freedom for this, which is why it should be opposed, all just across the board. Bad, old, these traditional roles are bad for us. Okay.
And look for that. Right? So that is my transition from feminist to more traditional woman or a traditional wife. I'm going to make a video specifically speaking about things that you can do to be more traditional. But I wanted to give this video to kind of just walk you through all of that stuff. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please give...
Oh my goodness. So, okay. So she seems to equate being masculine with being like aggressive and assertive and, that sort of classical masculine thing. And she talks about existing in her feminine energy and whatever. And he's in his masculine energy. So there's a lot of classical gender roles going on there with the passive and the assertive and the yin and the yang and the... I don't know. I think a lot of that is just nonsense. Okay? Like, I relate to a lot of the stuff about, the more feminine sort of stereotype of more, empathy, like, more relating to the connections between people. And I think, especially as a mother, that has to do with the very visceral consciousness that everybody is somebody's kid. I don't know. It's that people are interrelated. So, it's a whole different approach to the world, which would make some sense since we have a different starting point. It's the same world, though, and we're the same species. But feminism has clearly failed this woman. She's very smart, right? And interestingly, her husband is Black and she's actually Latina. And the only reason that I bring this up is because this is an interesting example of this whole conservative, gender roles, submissive, wifey, Christian thing without the white supremacy. So that's fun. But I don't know about you. I've known plenty of sensitive people who were bossy as hell. So, I don't personally see those two things as mutually exclusive at all. I think that there's a whole lot of false dichotomy, black and white, this or that thinking going on. Which, she burned herself out playing completely against type. And I relate to that. I so relate to that. But she believes that submitting to her husband is going to cure all her relationship problems. I don't know what kind of relationship problems they had. But you want to talk about something that's exhausting and difficult to keep up. But I will say for her that, she sure commits to stuff when she does it, doesn't she? This prosperity doctrine shit makes me sick, though. I hate it so much. It's like Christianity upside down. Okay? That's not what Jesus taught. Jesus did not teach that material blessings are signs of holy blessing. Like, that's not... What? That's offensive to me, and I'm not even in any of that. I have no horse in that race. But it's offensive to watch. Like, teamwork does not equal submission, okay? I tried, excuse me, there have been a couple of times when I tried respecting my husband's decision-making because he seemed very sure of himself, and he was mistaken. Because he's human. And everyone should have room to be human. You don't have to adhere to any of these roles, okay, you need to get to know the person that you're married to and yourself. So that's really the only way. The only way out is through. There's no magic formula that any counselor can give you for your particular marriage. Sorry. Good luck to you. And as for, how feminists should deal with this, obviously we need to address this. Because as I say, we've left the door wide open. Feminism's refusal to address the full reality of women's lives leaves individuals vulnerable to manipulation by those who would subdue us. Because they're the only ones telling the truth to women who want to get married, have a family. They exist. I wasn't one of them, but it's weird. I've ended up enjoying it a lot more than I ever would have guessed. So I really think that open-mindedness is the way to go on that one. Thank you so much for staying with me and for, considering more of the gender crap from the other side of the political and social spectrum, because it's just as important. If you've forgotten about Patriarchy Classic, don't worry, it hasn't forgotten about you. Okay. One of these days, this gender thing is going to be passed because it doesn't even hold up to the minimum of scrutiny, but religion will be there to fill in the gaps. I'm just sure it always is. So it's important that we go over these things. And these videos don't usually get quite as many views, but it always gets a good response anyway. So thank you so much for sticking with me, and like the video if you found this interesting and informative, and subscribe to the channel for more stuff like this, and I will be seeing you when I find some. Laters.